Now I know that kids can say some pretty crazy shit. For those of you who have kids, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Not the darndest thing crazy, like as in that old show hosted by pre-rape Cosby, where kids talk about boogers and poop. But like crazy, like, I guess we gotta find a good shrink kind of crazy. But in my case, I'm starting to think I need to find a good exorcist. We've been getting a fair amount of snow recently. As a kid, I'd used to see snow as a white gold gift from God that got me out of school and gave me all kinds of fun things to do outside. As an adult, the second I see a snowflake, I'll start cursing my existence. Oh great, you mean I get to wake up at the ass crack of dawn to go outside and shovel my driveway for an hour? And I still have to drive to work and likely get in an accident. Wow, thanks Jack Frost, you little fucking jerk. My daughter is in a paradise. Well, I'm trying to figure out what sins I have committed in my past to warrant such punishment. Anyways, we had a decent snowfall not long ago that, thank God, was on a Friday night. That meant I didn't have to go to work the next day. Saturday morning, after my obligatory hour of hard labor shoveling, I decided to spend the day with my daughter in the snow. And now, a quick description of my daughter. She is literally the cutest 5-year-old ever. Now I know most parents think that about their kids. But in this case, I'm right and you're wrong. She seems like she's permanently happy, and she has this crazy ability to cheer up whoever is around her. She's in a perma-skip mode, to the point that I question whether she knows how to walk properly. She's the most precious thing I've ever had in my life. So when she asked me if I would build her a snow fort, what was my answer? Your mother is going to build you a goddamn snow Fort Knox. It took me a lot longer than I thought it would. The thing collapsed twice, which made me begin to second guess whether I was being a responsible parent or not. The idea of having Child Protective Services called because my snow fort didn't meet the proper building codes popped into my head. But on my third attempt, I began to recall memories of my youth and was being able to build the most rugged snow fort ever built. It was almost like a giant igloo, but with windows cut out so you can attack intruders with a barrage of snowballs. I climbed to the top and was able to jump up and down without any problems. My daughter was ecstatic when she saw it, letting out a squeal and clapping her mittens together. We moved her tea table and chairs, along with the close ponies of toys, into the fort to make it more like a snow home. She gave me a big hug and kiss and kept telling me how great it was, like I had just gifted her a Ferrari. She played in that fort the entire day. I eventually went inside to veg out on the couch, but my husband and I would periodically check on her. She had placed some of her lesser-liked toys outside of the fort to be the invading army she was guarding against, and she was having a blast. The sun began to set when I called out for her to come in for dinner. She immediately exited and skipped her way inside. We were having chicken nuggets and mac and cheese for dinner. That's one of the benefits of having children. You get to eat like a little kid without being judged. I don't care how old you are or how much money you have. Chicken nuggets and mac and cheese are the fucking shit. I'd take them over a gourmet dinner 10 times out of 10. My daughter was excitedly telling us about her snow fort war stories. Mr. Potato Head was an army general apparently, and he sounded like a real dick. He wanted to invade and take over her tea table. My husband and I nodded along with her story, occasionally chipping in a wow or really to show how impressed we were with her valiancy. And he almost got in. He almost got my tea. I managed to keep him out, though. She told us proudly. She paused and added, "The man with no head said Potato Head wanted to kill us slow, but I told him Mr. Potato Head would never do that." Her voice trailed off at that last part. My husband and I nearly spit out our food. Who said what? My husband said in disbelief. My daughter bowed her head like kids do when they're embarrassed or ashamed. "The man with no head," she answered timidly, barely above a whisper. My husband and I exchanged glances. "Who told you that nonsense? The kids at school?" I asked, more firmly than I should have. My daughter bowed her head even more, and her lips began to tremble. That immediately broke my heart. Here, my precious 5-year-old was telling us how great of a day she had. But now she was about to break out into tears. I felt guilty for sounding harsh and moved my chair over to her and put my hand on her shoulder. "Oh, no, baby, it's okay. You're not in trouble and we're not mad," I said, much more gently than before. "Who told you about the man with no head?" "Nobody did, Mommy," she said, sniffling. She wiped her nose with her arm. "Okay," I replied, unsure what else to say. "Well, who told you about such an awful thing? About killing people slowly?" "He did, Mommy," she stammered, on the verge of breaking down. My husband and I exchanged glances once more. "Well, that's not real, sweetie, okay?" my husband said, putting his hand on her other shoulder. "Now, finish up. We need to get you ready for bed." Once our daughter had done the nightly ritual of bathing, putting on pajamas, brushing her teeth, getting into bed, receiving a nightly story, and eventually passing out, my husband and I talked about what had just happened. We eventually decided that everything was fine. As I said before, kids say some pretty crazy shit. I guess such active imaginations must eventually spit out something dark every once in a while. A phase, nothing to worry about. After the weekend, school was still closed, so my daughter was able to stay home, to her great enjoyment. My husband and I took turns staying home to watch her. Every day she'd go out to her fort and play. She spent every minute she could out there, almost like she was possessed. Over time, however, I began to notice a change in her. She wasn't smiling as much. Her skip had turned into a sullen walk. She wasn't the happy girl I liked to brag about anymore. We'd asked her what was wrong, but she wouldn't answer. In fact, she stopped saying much of anything. Maybe it wasn't a nothing to worry about phase like we originally thought. We began talking about seeing if there was someone she could talk to, because she definitely wasn't talking to us. I was tucking her in one night when she finally opened up. "Mommy, can you make him go away?" she asked, sounding miserable. "Make who go away, honey?" I asked, gently stroking her arm. "The man with no head." I sighed. "He's not real, sweetie," I assured her, hiding that I was slightly disturbed by the idea. She sniffled and looked away towards her window. "He is, Mommy," she said, her voice quivering. "He tells me such bad things. I don't like him." "See? Right there. How can he talk to you with no head?" I asked, trying to sound playful. It didn't work. "He says it here," she answered, pointing to her head. She looked at me pleadingly, like only I could release her from this torment. "He says you don't love me, that you hate me and wish I was dead." I sat back, astonished. "What? Oh, honey, that is so not true. You know that's not true, don't you?" I asked. I put my hand behind her head on the pillow. "Look at me, Amanda. You are the most amazing little girl that I know, and your daddy and I love you very much. There isn't anything in the world we wouldn't do for you. You know that, right?" She waited for a moment, then nodded. "Good. You know what you should say to that meanie if he comes around again?" She sniffled. "What?" "You tell him that he is a poop-faced liar and that your mommy is going to beat him up if he comes back here." She started giggling, which is the exact effect I was looking for. Referencing poop fixes 90% of problems with little kids. "I love you, honey," I said, planting a kiss on her forehead. "Good night." "Good night, Mommy," she said, smiling and squeezing her teddy. That night, my husband and I decided we needed to find a child therapist. The next day, lo and behold, it snowed again, and school was canceled again. It was my turn to stay home. My husband's an ER doctor, so getting time off is difficult for him. After breakfast, like clockwork, my daughter headed outside to the snow fort. I cleaned up and began getting ready to do some lovely shovel work. It wasn't long before my daughter rushed back inside. She had tears streaming down her pink face and looked terrified. He didn't like that, Mommy," she sobbed. She held out a folded up piece of paper in her shaking hand. Alarmed, I grabbed the paper and unfolded it. On it, written in jagged writing, "I'll cut your fucking throat while your whore husband and daughter watch." I immediately called the police, who arrived in less than 10 minutes. They didn't find anything around the house or in the fort, but they told me that they received multiple calls like this. They told me to keep the doors locked and to keep a phone on me at all times. I destroyed the snow fort not long after they left. For those of you living in the Boston area, keep your kids indoors. He comes when it snows.